understand that there is a very specific reason as to why you are unable to focus. And no, it's not because you're lacking motivation. It's not that you just need a little bit more inspiration. It's not that you need some fancy tactic or something of the sort. You simply need a little bit of structure, because without structure, everything falls apart. Your habits, your deep work, you cannot succeed without structure. And the purpose of this video is to go into a little bit more as to how exactly you can build that structure in your life. And if you're a founder who wants to gain 10 plus more hours a week so that you can finally work on a revenue project that you've been sitting on, click the first link in the description and let's find out how we can make that work. First, you need to understand that discipline, it's not motivation, but it's simply physics, right? It's very systemized. It's something that you can break down into processes, into fundamentals that go all the way back to the beginning of reality. A bit of an example. Let's say you have your room, right? 9 times out of 10, if you're a normal person, right, you don't want your room to get messy, right? You don't want your room to be a mess. You'd rather have it clean. But why is it that so many people end up having their rooms get a mess, right? Well, because ultimately, if you don't clean your room, if your room isn't clean, then naturally it's going to get messy. It's not because you wanted your room to become a mess, but simply because you didn't do anything about it, right? You let it sit and entropy ended up taking place. Chaos was able to enter in, and thus your room got messy, right? It wasn't your intention, and you didn't specifically plan, okay, I'm not going to clean my room for the next 2 weeks, and it's going to get messy. This is exactly what I want. No, it's just because you did not take action, the mess naturally worked its way in, right? And realize that the only way to prevent such a thing from happening is through systems, because systems destroy entropy. Systems eliminate chaos. Systems are very structured. Systems are very order-filled. And when there's that order, when there's that structure, you're naturally able to take the actions to prevent things like your room becoming a mess and things that are a lot more grave, like you wasting hours upon hours scrolling on social media, right? And again, if you're, the reason that you can't focus, the reason that you aren't able to make progress is not because you're undisciplined. No, it's simply you just need structure, right? And structure is a result of your environment. How is your room structured, right? Do you have all of these distractions in your space? What about in your fridge? Do you have a bunch of junk food, right? Are these distractions easily accessible? Are you easily able to just go in and just get distracted, right? Again, it's everything. It's a result of your environment. If your environment is created in a way where distraction is impossible, right? Where you cannot get distracted, then naturally, if distraction is not an option, then the only thing that you can do is focus, right? And if focus is the only option, then you're going to win, right? It's just the natural course of action. It's not something you got to think about. It's not something you got to force your way into. It's naturally going to come to you. It's naturally going to happen because when focus naturally leads to success, right? And in order to do that, there's a very simple process that I like to call the rewire ritual, right? And through this rewire ritual, it's very simple, 4 simple steps. You're going to be able to completely restructure your brain to the point where distractions are no longer an option. And focus is the only thing that's left. So first, there's waking up. Very simple. Wake. Right? What is waking up? Okay, you're asleep, you wake up, right? And you want to do that at the same time every single day. Again, it's not complicated. It's not high level, Pomodoro, these like random high level productivity tactics. No, you just want to wake up at the same time every single day. Me, I wake up at 6 every morning. It works for me. Maybe you're somebody who works up at 7. Maybe you're insane and you like to wake up at 4 a.m. I don't care. As long as it's the same time every single day, it doesn't matter. Now, after you wake up, you want to do some form of movement. Maybe you go for a jog. Maybe you do some calisthenics. Maybe you hit the gym, some yoga, whatever the case is, right? You want to move your body because this gets not only your body in the right place, but it gets your mind moving as well. Through that movement, through that action, you're able to clear your mind out from all of the distraction, all of the chaos that happened from the previous day. You're able to release that, allowing you to focus on what truly matters, allowing you to actually get genuine work done so that you're able to make genuine progress towards your goals. So movement, again, it's very essential. This is step 2. Third, you want to build. Now, this is where the magic happens. This is where the action takes place. This is you taking constant step towards your goal, moving that lever, right? Because obviously you cannot get anywhere if you're not making progress. So you're not taking the actions, right? You're not going to lose weight if you never exercise, right? You're not going to build muscle if you never exercise. You're not going to improve your business if you never work on it, right? Ultimately, this is the building stage. This is where the progress, the creativity, the action. This is you taking those lever moving actions, whatever the case is, for whatever it is that whatever your goal is, whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. Well, this is the action part of it. This is you locking in, 1 to 2 hours, deep focus, no distractions, actually making progress towards achieving that thing. And last, and most importantly, there's reflection, right? Because ultimately, throughout the day, you're going to do a lot of different things. You're going to do some things good, you're going to do some things bad, right? And it's important to reflect after all of that. Because for the things that you do well, why did they go well? What exactly can you replicate about that process to make sure you do well tomorrow? What exactly can you improve about that process to make sure that you do better tomorrow? And for the times that you fail, the mistakes you made, okay, what exactly about that went wrong? What is it that I did that made the result not what I wanted? Why did I fail? Okay, oh, maybe I shouldn't have did that for 5 minutes. Oh, maybe I shouldn't have did that for 10 minutes, right? Okay, you figured out what went wrong. Now you simply have to remove it or change it, okay? Maybe if I do it this way, it'll be better. Maybe if I just remove that altogether, I'll get that result I was seeking, right? Reflection is very important because reflection is improvement. You cannot improve, you cannot grow, you cannot change if you are not reflecting because you don't know what needs to change. You don't know what needs to improve if you never think about it, right? Reflection is extremely important. And let's get into a little bit, why exactly can't I rely on motivation, right? Why does motivation fail? Why is it unreliable? Well, ultimately, motivation, it's an emotion. It's very inconsistent. Some days you'll be motivated, and other days you won't be. Let's say you're motivated maybe 2 or 3 times a week, and it's only on those days that you decide to take some action and actually work on your goals, right? If you're only working on your goals, if you're only making progress 2 to 3 times a week, you're not compounding. You're not gaining momentum. You're not really getting anywhere, right? Like how long is it going to take you to actually achieve something, right? Again, in order to make a significant amount of progress, in order to build momentum, you need consistency. You need reps. You need day in and day out. It's like the snowball effect, right? Let's say, you start rolling that snowball, right, for 1 day, maybe 2 days, right? And then the snowball stops, right? Eventually that snowball is going to melt, right? Then you start rolling it again 3 days or, a day later, right? After you waited, now the snowball is gone. You got to start over. And then, you wait until next week to start again, right? That snowball is not picking up any speed. It's not getting mass. It's not going anywhere. But if you roll that snowball day after day after day after day, eventually it's going to be so massive, it's just not going to stop, right? You need consistency. And in that same way, motivation is also very dopamine based, right? Because again, motivation stems from ultimately the only way to become motivated is through action, which is why action comes first, right? But that action also creates dopamine in your head. It's that reward chemical, it's that pleasure chemical. And when you're feeling motivated, you're like, oh man, I can't wait to get this work done, right? It's only when that dopamine level is high enough in your head to where you actually want to take action. But again, how often does that happen, right? If you're not taking the action already, if you don't have that consistency built up to take that action, then again, motivation is going to be very inconsistent. It's going to come and go, it's going to come and go, and you're not getting anywhere. Again, having anything based on the level of your dopamine isn't going to work because dopamine fluctuates, especially when you spend a lot of time consuming mindless dopamine like scrolling, YouTube shorts, reels, Netflix, video games, junk food, right? That stuff really hijacks your dopamine to the point where it's literally impossible to focus on genuine work, stuff that requires effort because, again, you're getting, I draw this diagram every video. I'm going to do it again. And if you'd apply dopamine on a graph, right, well, here we have the actions, right, the things that you need to do, or the thing that you do. Right, this is dopamine. Actually, this is actually the other way around. Actions over here, and dopamine over here. Right, this is the level of your dopamine. And these are the things, that you constantly spend time on. Wasting time. Scrolling, video games, Netflix, junk food, all that jazz, all that stuff that, seems fun, but is really, ruining your potential and your momentum, right? The thing about dopamine is that once you're doing all these things, your dopamine level is going to rise, it's going to rise, it's going to rise. It's eventually going to get up here, right? Now, the baseline of your dopamine, right, it's going to be here, right? And you're only going to want to do things that raise that dopamine level, which is the stuff that wastes your time. Whereas the stuff that brings you genuine progress in life, such as exercise, focused work, reading, talking to people, creativity, all of these things that help you achieve your goals. Well, they're now below that baseline level of dopamine, meaning you are not going to want to do them. You're going to want to stay up here. And the only way to fix that, well, you got to raise your dopamine. A good way to do that is through boredom. I've made, entire videos on this. Just check my channel. But essentially, you need to drop that level of dopamine. Again, dopamine is like, you shouldn't rely on it, right? It's not something that you need to, especially when you're constantly consuming all of this mindless dopamine, right? Rather than doing that, you need to have action first, which again, boredom is an action. Boredom is something that you can do. There's a plane flying above you. But yes, rather than relying on dopamine, relying on motivation, you need to take action first. Very simple, right? So again, motivation is very dopamine based, thus you do not want to rely on it, right? And then, you can't rely on motivation whenever you're feeling tired, whenever you're feeling stressed, whenever you're feeling distracted. Well, you can just go ahead and say goodbye to motivation. It's going to go out the window, right? It's not going to be there to help you. So what next, right? When you're feeling tired, when you're feeling stressed, when you're not motivated, what is going to push you to get the work done? What is going to allow you to go through even despite that fact? It's not going to be motivation. Again, it's systems, it's structure, right? Because when motivation is your engine, when motivation is the thing that drives you and moves you forward, well, your system will always break, right? You're not going to be consistent. You're not going to get anywhere, right? The car's going to break down. You're going to be stuck on the side of the road. You're going to be burnt out. You're going to be stressed, right, for the next 2 or 3 weeks. Then you're going to come back, oh, yes, I'm motivated to get into the work. And then it's going to last for 3 more days, and you're right back to square one, right? Motivation, you cannot rely on it. It's not going to work, right? Systems, on the other hand, systems are going to beat the hype every single time. Routines will beat the randomness every single time. When you rely on a system, when you have the system in place, the system is going to work if you're tired or if you're not. The system is going to work if you're motivated, if you're not. The system is going to work if you're ready or if you're not. It does not matter. The systems do not care about your emotions. They don't care about your feelings. They're going to work day in and day out. Think about a conveyor belt in a factory, right? Just because the boss of the factory doesn't feel like waking up anymore, is that conveyor belt still going to be running? Exactly. If that boss is tired, will the conveyor belt run? If the boss is feeling unmotivated, will that conveyor belt run? Exactly, right? The system is going to take place regardless of how you feel or what you think, right? And that's how you build genuine momentum. When it's literally the only option, okay, I'm going to get up, I'm going to get this done. I'm going to get up, I'm going to get this done. I'm going to get up, and I'm going to get this done, right? When you do that day in, day out for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, you will be surprised. You can't begin to imagine how drastically your life is going to change once you truly build that consistency. But again, the only way to get consistent is by having a system, right? Because a lot of people, have this misconception about systems. Oh, it's a restriction, it's controlling my life. But systems in reality are protection. They're protection of your energy. They're protection of your decisions. They're protection against the chaos and the entropy of life that has no other purpose but to slow you down and stop you from achieving your goals, right? Because, again, right, it's applying this friction against the distractions and the shortcuts, right? What exactly is friction? It's a hindrance, right? It's slowing down the momentum of an object, right? When you have friction against the distractions, friction against these shortcuts and these things that are hindering your progress, then it's going to be a lot more difficult to do them. As an example, this is an example of friction. Let's say, you have this problem of scrolling whenever you sit down and do focus work, and your phone is right next to your desk, right? You're working, you get that urge, you pick up your phone, oh my goodness, Instagram, haha, funny reel meme, LOL, right? Essentially, you get pulled into that cycle of scrolling because your phone is right next to you. But let's imagine for a second then when you sit down for deep work, instead of your phone being right here, your phone is, all the way, downstairs in the kitchen, locked in some random box, right? Whenever you feel the urge to scroll, you're going to start to think about all the steps you have to take to get that phone. Oh, I got to get up out of my chair. I have to open my door. I got to walk through the hallway. Then I got to go down the stairs. Now I got to walk to the kitchen. I got to find that cabinet. Now I have to find the key and open this box. Now I can take out my phone and start scrolling, right? Because there's so many steps in that process just for you to scroll, you're like, I'm not doing that. I don't want to do that. And you aren't going to do it. That's what friction is. It's the level of barriers between you and whatever it is you're trying to stop, right? So when there's a lot of barriers between you and that distraction, you aren't going to get distracted, right? That's the beauty of friction. And again, friction is a system as well. It's a system of barriers, a sequence of barriers that stop you from getting distracted, right? And through this system, right, through this, these friction, these barriers, right, it's going to allow you to gain clarity and rhythm. Because when your mind isn't constantly being flooded by all of this information, all this unneeded dopamine, all this unneeded stimulation, you're going to be very clear on the direction you need to go in. You're going to be very focused, very locked in, and you're going to get into a rhythm, right? Waking up at the same time every day, getting the work done every day, getting that, moving your body every day, reflecting every right, following this 4-step system. It's going to be a very clear process. You're going to be able to see not just the goal, but the steps you need to take in order to achieve that goal. Everything is going to come together. The pieces of the puzzle are finally going to start falling in place for you. And once that does, there's nothing that you won't be able to accomplish. It's a very beautiful state of mind to be in. It's a very peaceful state of mind to be in, right? When you're finally able to have that clarity on your direction, on your goal, on your progress, you're able to see all of it taking place. There's nothing that beats that feeling, right? And your goals naturally become aligned through that system as well. Because again, the system is created from the top down. You have the goal in mind. Now you break it down. Okay, what do I need to do in 6 months? What do I need to do in 3 months? What do I need to do in this month, right? What do I need to do week by week? What do I need to do every single day? What do I need to do this minute, this hour, this second, right? Everything becomes aligned, targeted, hyper targeted to that goal that you're trying to achieve, to that revenue product, to finally gaining that progress, right? That clarity, that freedom that you're seeking so much, right? It's finally in place because that system has been hyper specified, hyper focused to you achieving that reality, right? And again, systems don't just change your behavior. No, it shapes your identity. It changes your reality. The system is what you become. You are the system. You are that structure. And when you are a system, when you are structured, right, there's nothing that will stop you from achieving your goals. There's nothing that's going to stop your progress. It's going to stop your momentum, that will halt you back, that will hold you back from being able to become that person that you've envisioned, the person that you want to be for your family, the person that you want to be for your kids, that role model that you want to be for those around you, someone they can look up to, like, wow, that guy did it. I don't know how. I would like to know how, but this guy, he's locked in. This guy, he knows what's up, right? You become that person. And the thing about identity is that once your actions follow identity, I'll paint it out really quick, right? So first there's identity, right? There's identity. This is who you are. This is what you become, right? And with your identity, right, becomes thoughts, right? Because if you know that you are a person who works out, right, then your thoughts are naturally going to follow in that suit, right? If you know that you're somebody who's hyper-focused, who gets things done day in and day out, then your thoughts are going to be, okay, I have this to do next, I'm going to do it. At 5, I have to carry out this work task. Okay, at 6, I got this project. 7, I got this client call. I know I have to do all these things. I am a person who does these things. These are the thoughts that are on your mind. And from those thoughts will stem actions, right? So now when you know you have to, get that workout in at 5, you go and do it, right? Because that's who you are. That's what you think about. You do it. When you have that focus work block to do from 6 to 8, right? You know that's who you are. You think about having to do it, so you're going to take that action again, right? From these thoughts the thoughts lead to the actions, right? You're thinking about it. It's constantly on your mind. Then it's very easy for you to take that action. No. And once that action comes, you get this result, right? You've completed the action, right? That's a box checked. And that builds your confidence and belief. Confidence and belief. Right. Right, because now you gain confidence because you actually did the thing. You think that rather, your identity is that I'm a person who does the thing. Your thoughts are, I'm going to do the thing. Your action is, I did the thing. Now all of that stems into you believing, wait a second, I am that kind of person. I do these things, right? You become confident. It becomes a part of you. You start to genuinely believe, wait a second, I am a person who gets things done. And that then reinforces your identity yet again. It's a self-feeding loop, making you better and better, causing you to improve and improve, causing you to become more and more consistent, because it started with your identity. And again, where does that identity come from? Well, systems, right? Somewhere on this page. Yes. Your identity comes from the system, right? When you have that system in place, when it's finally locked in, when it's finally set in stone, then that quite literally becomes you. And when you are the system, when that is your identity, there is, again, I can't iterate this enough. There is nothing that will be able to stop you from achieving your goals. Because simplicity is a superpower, right? When things are simple, right? When things are frictionless, when things are easy, you don't have to think about them, right? And again, that 4-step system that I identified earlier: wake up, move, build, reflect, right? It's very simple. And with that simplicity comes control. Because if you think about it, the more steps that are in a system, the more chance that the system has to fail, right? Because with each step has a, percent likelihood chance of failing, of not succeeding. Let's say it's 10%, right? When you have, let's say, 100 steps in that system, right? Each step might have 10%, right? But then almost in a way that system is guaranteed to fail, because just because steps 1 through 99, didn't hit that 10% mark, ultimately the chance of one of them hitting it will, right? That last step might fail, and once that last step fails, then the entire system fails. So when things are simple, when the steps are very low, the entire system has a less likelihood chance of failing. So again, it's why I like to keep things simple. It's why I like to keep things frictionless, because the less steps there are, the less I have to think about, the less I have to worry about, the more I can actually focus on doing what I need to do in order to achieve my goals, right? 4 steps, the slower the steps, it means the more control, right? Again, you stop trying to be disciplined. You're like, I'm finally going to lock in. This is the day. This is the week. This is the year 2025 when I hit my goals, right? It stops becoming something, I'm trying to do this. And it simply becomes who you are. You become disciplined. You become the system, like I mentioned earlier, right? That becomes your identity. And that consistency will stem from the repetition. The more you do it, the more you carry out the actions, the more you do this step by step, day by day, the more consistent you become. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, complexity will always break. Because with the more steps comes the higher chance that the system will fail. But simplicity, you are able to scale. Simplicity, you can scale to the moon. Complexity, it will break down right where it stands, right? There's nothing you can do about that. And understand that the things I'm talking about in this video, it's not just me saying random words, but it's stuff I've actually experienced, right? I used to be someone myself who was very unfocused, right? This is the amount of time I spent watching anime. That's almost 1,000 hours. And keep in mind, this is just what was logged. This is just what was logged in an app that I used on my phone, right? I watched countless hours of Netflix, random anime sites, right? That type of thing, right? And, here's my Steam hours as well, right? 250 hours, 74 hours, 126 hours, right? All of this time that I could have been using to achieve my goals, that I could have been making progress with my content, with my brand, with my business, right? But it was being put into things because, again, I didn't have a system. Because there was no system in place, I naturally took the path of least resistance, which for me was watching anime and playing video games, right? I had no focus at all, right? Because of it, I wasn't able to make progress, right? I lost years of progress that I could have been a lot further by now had I had that system in place. But once I did get that system in place, everything began to change, right? Once I finally focused on that rhythm, once I finally focused on that system, things started to change for me. I started making my first money on the internet, right? My YouTube channel has grown to almost 5,000 subscribers now. At the time I took this screenshot, which was a little bit earlier today, right, I think I'm at like 4.8K now, right? So I gained, what is that, like 50, I don't know, right? Essentially, I was able to, my YouTube channel is scaling like crazy right now. I think I've over doubled it now, right? At the start of this month, I was at like 2,000, 2.5, something around there. Now I'm at almost 5K, right? It's almost doubled again because I've been dialing in that system even more recently, right? My Instagram is growing, TikTok, right? I've got almost over 100,000 collective followers across my brand. And in the past 45 days, I was able to increase my revenue by 2K, right? All this, again, because I was able to dial in my systems. I was actually able to lock in and get the things done that it needs to do day in and day out, right? Following that 4-step framework. And things began to change for me. So ultimately, chaos is not something you should rely on. Don't rely on chaos. Don't rely on motivation, because in the end, it's not going to work. Without structure, entropy and chaos will always come in. There's nothing you can do about it if you don't do anything about it, right? And progress is not the default, right? You don't just naturally make progress by waking up and deciding that you will, right? And it's something that you have to design. If you want to make progress, if you want to actually genuinely achieve your goals, not just, wishy-washy, No, if you want to actually make genuine progress, then you need to design it. It has to become your structure. You have to become it, right? Because Motivation is a feeling, so you shouldn't rely on it. But systems are designed, and when that is designed, when that becomes your life, again, I've said it so many times in this video, I'm going to say it again. You will naturally achieve your goals. There is nothing that will stop you from achieving your goals. So, very simple, right? It's a decision you have to make. So, make the decision, repeat it every day. Your brain will naturally rewire, and you will become that person that you've always envisioned. So, again, hopefully you found some value in this video. Hopefully you realize that systems are the key. Systems are the key to you finally achieving your goals and finally making progress. And again, if you're an entrepreneur or a founder who wants to free up 10 plus hours every single week so that you can actually start working on that revenue project that you've been sitting on, you've been telling yourself, oh, I'm going to do it, but you haven't done it yet, then click the first link in the description and figure out how you can make that happen today. Other than that, I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.